Hi everyone, I'm Cecily with Yoga Detour, and I'm joined today by the lovely Petra Fisher, who's here to talk to us about an area of movement and her movement practice that I think is really not discussed all that widely, and maybe because it's a little bit more personal or something's a little bit more awkward, and that is right here, the mouth and the tongue and the jaw and how this whole apparatus relates to this whole apparatus. So a few weeks ago, or was it last month, Petra, when did you publish that blog initially about?
It was about 6 weeks ago now, I think.
Yeah, so it was a little while ago, and I read Petra's blog because we've been connected now as colleagues for a few months. I reached out to Petra about her work that she does with nutritious movement, Katie Bowman's style of teaching movement, and I wanted to just meet Petra because I saw what she was doing for the community, and it looked so interesting, and I knew we'd have a lot in common. So we connected a few months ago, and since then I've kind of been, staying in touch and shooting back and forth different things that we're working on or questions that we have just based on research that we come across on our own. And I found her to be a super amazing colleague just to have, out there in the world to shoot ideas off of. So when I read this blog post of hers about breathing and tongue position in the jaw, it really resonated with me because my mouth has been a disaster my whole life. I am a self-declared mouth breather extraordinaire. I have been my whole life. And it really wasn't until the last few years where I became introduced and exposed to the Buteyko method that we use in the Detour program that I started to understand the ramifications of mouth breathing on everything else. So we're going to get into that a little bit more with Petra in a moment, but the other things that really interested me in terms of what you were mentioning in your blog was tongue resting position and swallowing and also talking, because this is what I'm talking, especially in these videos. And now maybe that I've said it, you guys watching it will see it, that there's stuff going on with my mouth that I'm not aware of at all when I'm talking. But then when I watch it back after the fact, I'm like, what's going on there with my mouth? Mm-hmm. So this has sort of brought me into a new journey around, okay, well, I'm comfortable with getting my shoulder under control, but what about my jaw and what about my tongue and how do I even start? So this is why I wanted to bring Petra in to have a discussion today and kind of get her take on both where she's come from in her journey and now how she's starting to mold this into a practice, which is super interesting. So Petra, hello.
Cool. Thanks, Cecily. It's super exciting to be here with you, and I just think the world of the work that you guys are doing. So it's awesome right now to be in the movement world with so many smart people who are rethinking what movement even means. So it's awesome to be here, and I think it's a really great subject because you're right, it's not talked about very much. And when it is talked about, it's being talked about in these little specific pockets that don't actually reach broadly. So that's really the reason I wrote those blog posts, was to start getting a conversation started. So it's even more exciting to be here to continue that. So I guess my story started really far away from the world of movement. I was a lawyer. And I was an unhealthy, sick, unhappy lawyer. I hated it, and my body was breaking down. And for my stress relief, what I did was working out. So I would go to the gym and I would run, and I just kept getting all these different injuries. And meanwhile, my sleeping was getting really bad. So this was all about 15 years ago. So I had sort of increasing insomnia and all these sports injuries. And so I started kind of spending more and more time in different therapy offices, basically. And I ran the whole range of it. I've done everything from acupuncture to chiropractic to energy work. Like, I've done it all. And a whole bunch of stuff would help temporarily, but I would just keep getting different injuries. Somewhere along the way, I realized that I was grinding my teeth, but I didn't actually put that together with the headaches and neck pain that I had regularly as well. So, exactly what you're describing, right? You don't put it all together. So I guess I was focused more on dealing with the soft tissue stuff, with the sports injuries, with the things that were kind of impeding my stress relief. And I started getting really interested in the work that my different therapists were doing with me. And the more I realized how awesome bodies were, the more I wanted to work around them. So I transitioned away from corporate life about 5 years ago now and discovered the work of Katie Bowman. And so I'm certified to teach her approach to movement, which is called restorative exercise, in the broader context of how you move through your day, through your life. And I guess her message, one of her messages, is that how you move shapes your body, which, you know, we all know as movement people that it clearly does. You know, you adapt to the movement input that you get. So when I started doing her work more seriously, I was kind of hoping that my TMJ and my airway issues from snoring and insomnia and neck pain and headaches would start improving. And what I found was that lots of other issues improved, but I really wasn't getting much change in those areas. So I started digging a little bit deeper, and it was actually a total coincidence. I'd been going to a TMJ dentist for a while without very great results. And then I was going for coffee with a friend who said that she had gone to a new dentist and was doing tongue exercises. And I was like, oh my God, tongue exercises. Like, of course I need to have some tongue exercises. So I looked up this dentist, and I walked into her office, and her hygienist was like, oh, you have a tongue tie, that's your problem. And no one had ever mentioned tongue tie to me, and I really didn't have an idea of what a tongue tie was or what it meant for your body or anything. So I was like, okay, this is awesome, because now I've got a path forward I can work with. So that was about last, I don't know, September, October that I kind of discovered that. And since then, I've been getting more and more involved both in my own therapy and healing journey, and also learning more and more about the exercises that can kind of work with the impacts of a tongue tie. So I guess a tongue tie is a thing that lots of people are starting to become more aware about when it comes to babies, because when you have a baby that has a tongue tie, they typically can't latch. So that means they can't breastfeed properly, and it causes a lot of distress for the baby and the parent. So right now in baby circles, tongue ties are a big deal, and they're being diagnosed and they're being dealt with early, and it creates a lot of sort of beneficial effects on the baby growing up. Back when we were born, tongue ties were completely ignored by the medical profession. And it's actually this crazy thing.
The thing under your tongue?
Yeah, so you should have a thing under your tongue, but you can have a thing under your tongue that interferes with your ability to move your tongue around, or else you can have one that's far enough back that it's totally fine. So it's connective tissue. It's just your tendon, but you could have a tighter one or a looser one. And you could also have a lip tie in the top at the front, in the bottom. You can have all kinds of too much tissue in there. So yeah, when we were babies, breastfeeding wasn't as much of a thing, and the medical profession was really against dealing with tongue ties, because midwives used to just, when they saw a baby with a tongue tie, they would literally just flick it off. So the newborn got it dealt with immediately. And then when babies were medicalized, the doctors were like, well, that can't be right. And so they let it go. The result of that is that a whole bunch of now adults have never been diagnosed, have never been treated. And that means that there's a huge range of issues that can come out of tongue ties specifically. In the broader context, because not everyone has a tongue tie, but it's about 1 in 4 people. It's huge. It's a really bigger issue than you ever think. But there are a ton of other mechanical and environmental impacts that can go into how your mouth is shaped and how you breathe and how you swallow. So you probably experienced some of the same ones that I did. Like, I remember I chewed my nails. So that's a classic way to affect how your tongue rests in your mouth. I used to chew on my hair. At one point, when I sort of started realizing I was breathing through my mouth and other people weren't, I think I was like 8, I was like, oh, breathing through your mouth is kind of awesome. So I actually tried to breathe through my mouth. So, you name it, I was like doing everything wrong. And there's all kinds of, anything you kind of put in your mouth when you're at that age is going to shape how your tongue sits in your mouth. Yeah. And the result of how your tongue sits in your mouth is huge in terms of your facial development.
And just like when you say that, what I'm thinking of, for me, my mom always tells these stories about how I was obsessed with my bottle. And I used to walk around the house with the bottle, like the nipple of the bottle and the bottle attached, just hanging out of my mouth, no hands.
Yeah.
And when I think about what that would actually look like, it was like that bottle nipple would have been sitting on the roof of my mouth, pushing my tongue down and back.
Yeah.
Which is now where I find it tends to hang out more often. Like, there's still some times where I'll catch myself like, oh, my tongue's in the good place, what you referred to in your blog post as the sweet spot. But I find also when I'm exerting myself, like if I'm working out in a way that I'm really like giving her, my tongue is often on the bottom teeth pushing forward. And if
Interesting.
I didn't have one of those like permanent wires in from all my many years of orthodontics, then I probably would have pushed those teeth eventually into some kind of disarray from my tongue.
The tongue's a really strong muscle, and because the movements we make with it are so repetitive that even if it doesn't seem like a big deal when you just think about it, it adds up big time over time.
Yeah.
And you know it's crazy too for you, for your workouts. If you can keep your tongue pushing into the top of your mouth the whole time, you're going to be stronger. There are measurable scientific studies that your strength increases.
Like my coach will use that cue with me sometimes, especially for things that I have a hard time with, like a bench press, for example. I suck at bench pressing. That's a cue that he'll use, like bring the tongue into the roof of your mouth. And I also find that that helps clients of mine who suffer from a lot of neck tension. That if they can focus on where the tongue is placed, that it really helps redistribute that tension more efficiently.
Yeah, for sure. It's got this crazy implication for all your stabilization, for your breathing, obviously. And I'm sure there's a lot of neurological stuff happening there as well, because it's so supportive for your cranial bones. I don't think it's even fully understood at this point in time how big a deal where your tongue is actually is. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, and it's hard to change what your habit is. So whether you have a tongue tie or not, the habit is something that you can work on. But if you have a tongue tie, then that's a primary issue that you probably want to get dealt with, so that then you can work on it more freely.
Okay. So we've got tongue tie, we've got tongue position, and then of course, like the overall alignment of the jaw would come into play too.
Yeah. Although all of those things are totally related. So when you have your tongue at the bottom of your mouth, you're more likely to mouth breathe. When you mouth breathe, you're more likely to throw your head forward all the time. Suddenly, you've got a kink in the back of your neck. Now you're getting the neck pain and the shoulder pain issues, and your jaw's probably going to start moving around as well. So just like everything in the body, it's all super, super connected, and you can kind of dig in at it from a bunch of different angles. But the tongue is quite primary because it's a driver for your airway.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. I think it's really, really awesome that you guys are bringing out the Buteyko breathing to your people, because we talk a lot, I guess, about breathing technique and belly breathing or rib breathing or whatever, whatever approach you're using. But there's also the pure airway related side of it. And if you're not breathing through your nose, you're missing out on some really, really important aspects that your nose gives you. So, it warms the air, it changes the gaseous balance into something that's more appropriate for your bloodstream. Like, it is a big deal to breathe through your nose. Yeah. And it's one of those things where the more you breathe through your nose, the easier it is to breathe through your nose. And the less you do, the more your nose gets plugged up. So you kind of have to start somewhere, chipping away at it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's something that, at least in the yoga community, is still so new, that when we bring the Buteyko method into our program with students, it's, for the majority of them, if not like I'd say 99% of them, the first time that they've heard of it. Yeah. And because the methodology can seem somewhat extreme for people, it can be difficult to latch onto because it's so different. And it's asking us to reevaluate what we thought was right around taking deep breaths and where that breath should be going in the body, and this whole like in through the nose, out through the mouth mentality that a lot of different movement modalities have had. I'm thinking of like Pilates and aerobics and all those kinds of things that a lot of people have done in their lives at some point. So yeah, I see it a lot in my students, people who, especially when they reach a certain level of exertion, it's all mouth breathe, all but mouth breathing. And then when I try and talk to them about how that's actually having a counter effect to what they think it's doing for them, that's met with some confusion and skepticism.
Sure.
You said,
I think, as much as it's exciting to be in this time when so much is changing, it makes it hard because a lot of the things you've been told aren't really being supported by the increasing and better evidence.
So, you said to me earlier when you were first introduced to Buteyko, you found it really difficult. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I straight up hated it. I was introduced to it pretty early because my cousin's husband has Parkinson's, and it's actually one of the best ways to treat Parkinson's that's out there. So he became an instructor, and we spent some time working on that together, and I hated it. It did not work well for me. I really struggled to hold my breath. I found it really just awkward. And I think, whenever you hate something, it's usually a sign that it's like the ideal thing for you to do. I personally have found that the work of Lois Laney resonates better for me. So she has a practice called restorative breathing.
Yeah.
And it's all a little bit mysterious because her website doesn't give you a lot of information on it. But for me, it's just a little bit more sort of soft pedaled where you don't have to kind of hold your breath so much, which I just didn't enjoy. But again, when I did that work with him, that was probably about 2 years ago. So I hadn't been working on my nasal breathing and my swallowing. So I would actually really like to take a course now.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, I found it really helpful in the work that I did with Steve, the instructor that we have on our faculty. He makes it not at all about holding the breath. It's more just about getting comfortable knowing and understanding how your body has been conditioned in terms of its CO2 levels. So what point does your brain switch on that urge to take another breath? And how can we start to shift that curve in a direction where we are more, that our whole system, our brain and internal nervous system is comfortable with that CO2 level starting to change without us feeling like we have to take another breath in.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, it's kind of it's an approach where he would, if he heard you say it's about holding the breath, like, no, it's not about that.
Well, it sounds like I need a better instructor then. I will have to come to one of your sessions.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, it takes some practice figuring out how you can just be kind of without breath, without holding the breath, if that makes sense. You know, like just lengthening the pause between the inhale and the exhale. Not the inhale and the exhale, more so the exhale and the next inhale. Yeah. There's just that little break in between each breath. But anyway, with this whole method, for me, what was really telling was the information about mouth breathing and how by having the mouth open, even if it's just at night when you're sleeping, even though it's not, like I'm still mouth breathing when I'm talking to you right now because that's how I know to talk rather than pausing and then talking after I've taken a breath.
Can't do that.
So, I mean, but the nighttime stuff was definitely a game changer for me because I remember when we first started talking about the concept of taping my mouth closed when I was asleep. And no, for those of you out there picturing duct tape, it's not duct tape, it's medical tape. It's very easy to take off. In fact, it was constantly coming off in my sleep. And at one point, my boyfriend told me that he was watching me take the tape off in my sleep. Yeah, I was like, this is not normal. Get me out of here. I need to breathe through my mouth.
That's amazing.
And then when I went through the exercise protocol with Steve and really committed to shifting my whole approach to breathing, then the tape started staying on. And now I find it's like essential. I need to have it on to feel like I'm ready to go to bed and ready to sleep. And I have way, way better sleeps. Yeah. So this kind of opened my eyes to all of the subsequent things that I think were a result of me being a mouth breather, such as 5 years of orthodontics, which began with having a palate expander put into the roof of my mouth to open up my jaw. And if you think about like the mouth being open all the time and how the impact of that on drawing down and narrowing the facial structure, I ended up not having enough room for my own teeth. Yeah. So I had teeth pulled. I had to have the expander in. I had all this like spacing work done to create space that my own face had gotten rid of. And my teeth were a constant battle for me for many years. And now I have to wear a retainer for the rest of my life. You know, and I think that now that I have the mouth breathing more under control, then I notice less of a deterioration in my jaw when I go for certain periods of time without putting a retainer in, for example. But I think now that people are kind of learning about all of the stuff to do with the mouth, how that impacts things they never thought about before, then maybe it'll become a little bit more mainstream.
I hope so. And it's really interesting. So I'm working with an oromyofunctional therapist. That's the official word for someone who does mouth exercises with you. And that's a certification I'm looking at getting at some point in the future. It's a huge, huge profession in Brazil, of all places. It's big in Brazil, and it's big in Brazil cosmetically, actually, because where your tongue is makes such a difference in how your face looks.
They get it. They get it. They understand.
Yeah. Or they get something about it. I'm not sure if the health side of it is quite the same. But it's exactly right. Like what happens when your tongue is at the bottom of the mouth is that your palate doesn't get the support it needs. So instead of kind of broadening and lowering, it sort of gets domed and high. And that's sort of the role of palate expanders. I have an appliance right now that's very small, so I can't actually show you, but it's a little wire in the back of my teeth that's expanding the top teeth in this very kind of gentle osteopathic way. So
Cool.
it's pretty interesting. But then the oromyofunctional side of it comes in with habit change. And so where you're noticing that the tape is very helpful for you. I've been doing a whole bunch of lip exercises to enhance the ability of my mouth to close my lips. So, it's not just about practicing, but you actually have muscles that aren't functioning the right way. And so then we get all these lip exercises so that you both change neurologically so that it becomes easier to connect to, but also so you just have more capacity to do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
So do you want to show us some of those exercises?
Exercises! Let me show you. It's my new favorite one because it's ridiculous. So I can only do it like in private or on the internet. It's super fun. You have to say the word prue or prune. And you have to go like this. You have to go like prune. Nice.
And do you have to actually say it while you're doing it?
You gotta say it. You gotta say it. Yeah.
So are you like really driving your bottom jaw forward?
Drive your lips forward. And you know what we're both doing right now? We're both going this with our heads.
Yeah.
So keep your head ramped back and then go.
Okay, so that's really attractive. Like really, so almost like double chin.
All the head ramping exercises are a little bit double chin.
Yeah.
And then you're like going kissy face with your lips as much as you can. So you're really trying to tire your lips out here. The goal is to get your lip muscles tighter.
Sweet. And so like how much of that do you do? Like do you do it for reps or?
Yeah, you know what? I'm really bad with my mouth exercises. I'm trying. But just like anyone, when you're doing correctives, they're not as inspiring as your other ones. That one I can do a lot because I like it. I try to get a solid 20 minutes in per day. I feel like I should do more. So, you know how it is.
Constantly you're doing that for 20 minutes or just throughout the day?
I try for like a 20-minute morning session, and then I'll throw a little bit of other stuff in throughout the day.
And that one, again, is to help the lips close better.
It's called a lip seal, I believe. And one of the reasons that makes a difference in terms of your tongue position is when your lips are closed, it allows the mouth to kind of exist with a vacuum. And that vacuum is part of what pushes the tongue up onto the top.
Ah, I get it.
Not only can you no longer breathe through your mouth, but there's this other function, which is pretty cool.
Cool.
The other kind of main exercise focuses that you have, for me, there's a lot of tongue stretching and tongue strengthening, and that's to deal with the tongue tie. I don't know how applicable that would be for someone who wasn't dealing with a tongue tie. Let's just for fun, you know what, have you ever checked yourself for a tongue tie? Have you ever looked into that?
Well, I don't think I have one because I can bring my tongue to my nose.
Oh, that doesn't sound like a tongue tie for sure. So interesting. If you want to try the sort of the official test for it, it's pretty fun. So you have to watch yourself closely because it's very easy to cheat.
Okay.
Basically what you're going to do is I'll watch you for you. Open your mouth as wide as you can go comfortably. And now see, can you stick the tip of your tongue onto, not out, it's in your mouth. Nice try though. Show off. So you want to keep your tongue open, and can you stick the tip of your tongue up to the top of your mouth? Without moving your jaw. So go back, do it again, do it more slowly. So open your mouth, keep your jaw down. Yeah, there you go. And now see, can you very nice. Yeah, so that jaw was totally still. You can take a break. You do not have a tongue tie. I can't do that. When I open my jaw the whole way, I've had my tongue tie released, but there's a bunch of different types of tongue tie, and I have what's called a posterior tie, which is harder to deal with a laser. So I'm hoping there's a guy in LA. So I'm gonna go and see the guy in LA at some point when I can afford it. So there's a long-term plan there. In the meantime, I'm doing a lot of stretching, which most people probably aren't that interested in because it kind of sucks. You're trying to create a change in the tissue mechanically by going past your range. It's sort of not very fun. But what might be helpful for you? I
just wanted to reiterate again. So the importance for you behind you would go to LA to see this guy because by getting that release, you think it's then going to help you even further to release the tension that you're finding contributes to things like snoring, insomnia,
Yeah.
Next.
So let's talk about what it contributes to, because it's crazy. Like the tongue is attached connective tissue-wise all the way down to the diaphragm.
Yeah.
So right there, you know that it's going to have a breathing impact, a core impact, a pelvic floor impact, you know, because that's all connected completely.
Yeah.
And then if you look at me, if you look at my body from the side, when my ribs are neutral, that's my shoulder joint. So I've got some hyperkyphosis in my back, and that forward bend isn't really ideal. But the real problem in my body is I've displaced my shoulders forward, like, I don't know, 2 inches, because it should be midline sort of across my hips. So my shoulder should really be back here.
Right.
But I can only get there by displacing the entire shoulder joint. So that's almost certainly tongue tie, plus being a giant nerd and reading my whole life and having my hands in front of me all the time.
Yeah.
So that's one of the
I have the same nerd. Mine's the same nerd posture here too.
Nerd posture.
No tongue tied, but nerd posture.
And that's the thing, right? Because it all piles in together. So you've got being a nerd plus your tongue tie plus whatever else you've done in your life,
and head position, other things that are super common.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And, you know, so that means shoulder tightness. So you can often see things like thoracic outlet syndrome. I have what's called cubital tunnel syndrome. So that's the ulnar nerves not conducting properly.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of hand tightness. So is that the tongue tie or is that rock climbing? Like, I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
What I notice specifically in my body is, first of all, I definitely have what's known as TMJ disorder. So if I open my mouth, let me see if I can do it. Can you see how my jaw doesn't open straight?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a deviation.
Yeah.
And if you're lucky, I'll click for you as well, which is super unpleasant. So I don't have a disc anymore in this jaw. And I'm really lucky because I don't have any pain, but it would be really nice to get it back to kind of where it's supposed to be so that I have the opportunity. They say you can't regrow cartilage, but I don't frankly believe it. I think that if you have some cells, you have some potential to heal. And I'd like to find out if I do have that potential.
Has anyone ever showed you the Aldoas for the jaw?
I have not seen the Aldoas for the jaw. See, this is why we need to hang out more. So good. So there's all the jaw stuff. And then the other thing that's happening in my mouth is that the tightness at the bottom of my tongue is so tight that it's caving in my bottom teeth right now.
Mm.
So I'm going to get an appliance to sort of expand the bottom teeth to go with the top one. But I can feel the constant tension there, which I don't feel like it's a good thing to have. And then I feel like because my whole body, then I get headaches. So there's headaches and jaw tension, and what else can happen? Your face shape changes like we've been talking about. So I expect that over time with treatment, my face shape will become a little bit different. I expect I'll get a little bit more cheekbone, maybe less bags under my eyes, which would be amazing. But the real thing is the insomnia, because sleeping is so, so important, and I would like to.
Yeah. And like, how many people out there are taking drugs when they could be doing this work instead and having way better long-term effects?
Or CPAPs, right? Like sleep apnea. Yeah. Huge, and this work really can be very effective at fixing that in a way that doesn't involve going to bed with a machine in your bedroom every night, right?
Mm-hmm. Strapped to your face.
Yeah. So relaxing. So it's huge. And you know, you're talking body implications, but then there's the brain implication too. If you're not getting oxygen the right way or enough oxygen, then your brain is not going to operate at its best. And with everything that implies, it's huge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can overstate the importance of the airway.
I would agree. And I think that when I read your post and I started seeing that there's actually dentists out there that are paying attention to that, I was like, why has no dentist ever said anything about that to me? When I would think that as a dentist, they can see when someone's a mouth breather.
Yeah, I know.
You know, and they can see, it's like, well, obviously I had tons of orthodontic work done, but was any of the causes that, you know, made that work necessary ever dealt with? And I don't think that they were. Yeah. I think it was just understood like, oh, well, you just got crooked teeth because your parents have crooked teeth, and now we have to fix them with braces. And you'll be fine. And I think that I think it's really now amazing that we're seeing this so in terms of the broader spectrum of movement. So was there anything else you could share with us in terms of exercises or the reason why I'm holding a spoon that no one can see?
I'm excited about it. Just a quick note on the dentist. So I think what's happened, first of all, I think this stuff is new. It's only been over the last 3 or 4 years that it's becoming a thing in dentistry. And a lot of dentists who may be more traditional aren't aware of it yet. So, you know, if you think this is a concern for you, you can check with your current dentist. And if you're not satisfied with their answer, find an airway focused dentist because they're out there.
I looked up yours and I'm going in 2 weeks.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. Yeah. Delightful, and she'll love you. So that's so awesome. Okay. Well, that's great news. Okay. So I want to talk exercises with you a little bit more.
Okay.
One was about tongue positioning. So I wanted to talk about finding the spot. So when you think about the palate, if you could imagine this is the palate and this is your tongue, the tip of your tongue should be up on the palate, and then so should the back of your tongue. So you could kind of be pressing, right?
Fine. Back of the tongue? No.
Totally. So there's two super simple exercises that we could do right now for it. So one is to say Boston. If you say Boston, that where your N is the spot where the tip of your tongue should be.
Okay.
So you don't even have to say the Boston part.
Yeah.
And then to get the back of your tongue up, you can say the letter K. So K.
Okay.
K. 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 And you can make it silent, and you can press your tongue up. So it's like a tongue push up. So you're like K. K.
Okay.
K.
I feel like it's funny how you have to sort of make the noise to get it to actually do it. Otherwise, it feels kind of forced.
Yeah. You get used to it. Like at this point, I can make it silently. So you start making the noise, then you do it silently, and then you can do it with more enthusiasm. So you're really doing a tongue push-up. And a sort of a set of 20 of those would be a really nice way for you to start kind of getting your tongue to start thinking about living on the top of your palate.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I'm going to give you too many exercises because that's my chief fault as a movement teacher. But you could advance from there once your tongue's up there, once you've got the going, keeping your head back, you can slide the back of your tongue up and down across your palate. So it's kind of this motion where you're like rubbing the top of your palate, pushing your tongue into it.
Can you see my jaw? Like my
It's hard work, right?
Try that again.
You should be able to see this happening here because it's coming, right? So you're like, okay, this is going to be the most boring video ever. But if people try it at home, they should notice it's a fair bit of work. And keeping your head up.
When you're doing that slide, you're trying to keep the tongue flush rather than like having it kind of curl or kink in the middle at all.
That's right. It's nice and flat. Yeah. And I wouldn't worry too much about the tip for that. It's just an exercise to get the middle of the tongue up to the middle of the palate. So that's sort of tongue positioning, and that will help with your swallow. So a swallow should be a motion that starts with your tongue already at the top of your palate, and all that happens is your tongue kind of squishes your food back.
That was crazy to me when I was working with my coach Love Deep. When I told him that I felt my tongue always in the bottom of my teeth, he was like, "This is a big deal. We have to fix this." And we did some swallowing together. And for a second, I know, sounds like, what did you do when you worked out today? Swallowing. When he told me to try swallowing with my tongue up, I couldn't swallow at first. I was like, just wouldn't happen. And then when I really focused on like what you're saying with that kind of wave action happening, I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, but I have definitely not been doing it like this.
Yeah, totally. And again, so many repetitions, it's happened so much. So, you know, having that practice will help with your swallow, making it less and less something you have to think about. Now it sounds like you're on it, but anyone who's experiencing this, can try it out. So the final thing I wanted to do with you was the one that you required implement for. And this is from Lois Laney's Restorative Breathing, which I'm hoping to take a full training on this October. But this is what I've been doing to work on my breathing, so probably a little different from Bateko. It's a breathing and swallowing technique with a hum. So you probably already know about humming being super awesome for triggering your vagus nerve. It's generally good for your airway, and I don't actually know all the reasons why it's so good for us. It's just good. So this is a super, super weirdo exercise. You're going to take your spoon or your fork or whatever it is. You're going to scrape it on your tongue 3 times to activate some nerves in your tongue. You're going to flip it. You're going to scrape it on top of your palate right around that spot area 3 times. Then you're going to take your tongue up to the roof of your mouth. As you hum, you're going to swallow all at the same time. Let me see if I can show you. So it looks like this. You're like, Mm. You hum and then swallow. So it's like super complicated.
Okay, so go scrape, 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 scrape.
Tongue to the top, and then you're going to squish your tongue back along the top of your mouth.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and I'm not opening too wide. Just
wide enough to get your thing in there.
Okay.
The smaller the thing, the better usually.
Okay.
Scrape, scrape, scrape. Flip it. Scrape the palate. Tongue to the spot. Nice. And swallow.
Do that then like a number of times in a row?
Yeah, I would usually do that. You could do that sort of about 3 times each time before you have a meal. That's a good marker. So 3 times a day. So when you're working on breathing and repatterning, frequency is definitely helpful. So that would be probably a good amount to work on that. And what you're doing with that is you're activating some of the nerves that, I mean, you've got so many nerves in your mouth that are directly connected into your brain.
It's like a little bit of a wake up happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
You can change the thing you use to scrape, and that changes the feedback as well, so it makes it more effective if you use lots of different small things.
Like a toothbrush also?
A wooden spoon, a chopstick, like anything that's not going to break your teeth, that just will give you a little bit of different feedback.
So interesting. So how have you started bringing this practice now into your broader movement practice?
I would say the biggest thing that I'm really noticing is I'm working on tongue posture and head posture as I walk. So walking is a huge part of my movement. And I've realized very much that, this was the way that I was walking, and that's an easy fix to make just by sort of sliding your head back and really being conscious of tongue position when I walk. In terms of my broader movement, what I'm doing now is focusing a part of my practice. I mean, it's always so hard with body stuff, right? Because you've got so many bits that you could work on, and I find it hard to just isolate one bit. But I am definitely working more on shoulder repositioning and lengthening my pecs. So I do a lot of hanging, a lot of work sort of side hanging and loading to the side to lengthen through there. And a lot of neck work as well, so sort of decreasing neck tension. And that's one thing that has changed since my tongue tie release. I haven't had any serious neck pain since then. So there's definitely, it's cool. It's exciting when you see positive change.
Because when did you have that done, the tongue tie release?
That was November. And I immediately noticed more ability for my head to slide back at all. There's just more to be gained. Yeah, it's cool.
All right, I have one more question for you. It's a question I love to ask everyone at the end of my Body Nerd chats. And that's sort of, I think we've kind of spent a whole almost hour talking about it, but anything else that's sort of like super front of mind for you right now, something you maybe just read or just listened to or just watched that was,
oh my God. That's a terrible question to lay on me. I've got one of those brains where when you say something like that, I'm like, nothing. I haven't learned anything ever. You know what I'm actually loving right now is playing around with some somatic work. I've been listening to some audio Feldenkrais lessons, and they are so weird and they feel so nice. So I don't know if you've ever dabbled in Feldenkrais.
Dabbled, like very small amounts.
Yeah.
Really, so very neat stuff. I like it a lot.
It feels fantastic, and it's super weird because, it's just these little tiny motions and you're just feeling and sensing, and you create this really amazing change. So I'm really liking little bits of that sprinkled into my regular life right now, just to totally interact with my body in this completely left of field way.
And that's an audio instruction you have?
And there's a really great resource online. It's a guy called Twin Cities Feldenkrais, and he offers binodation audio. So I've been going to that and
nice.
Really enjoying his work a lot. So.
Very nice. Cool.
Awesome.
Well, I have loved chatting with you, Petra. Thank you for joining me here today. I want to be sure to direct everyone to your website and your blog. Can you remind them how to find you out there on the big bad web?
Yeah, for sure. I'm petrafishermovement.com, and I have a free foot series on there because I'm also obsessed with feet because they're just super important as well. So that's awesome if anyone wants to come and check that out. I put out lots of stuff.
Amazing. Cool. Well, thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you out and about in the world, wherever our paths happen to cross next.
I have to come to your potato training the next
Yeah,
time.
yeah, you should come. You should
I
come. And thanks everyone for watching. If you have questions or comments for either of us, please be sure to leave those down below, and we will respond and get back to you. I look forward to the next time I have another Body Nerd chat. So I'll see all of you back here then.